Now, I know that I'm always telling other people don't be lazy and entitled, the internet is free, look things up on your own, but it's not that I haven't tried to engage in my own research. I have literally searched.
What's good, you guys, and welcome again on another episode. How are you doing? I hope you all are well. And if you're here for the very first time, thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't make it your last time, so smash the subscribe button before you go. I have a video of an Asian American woman sending a message or a question out to white people. She had posted a video and someone commented and said, white people also experience racism today. I know the today in that comment means that in the world we have today, or maybe in the United States today, white people as well experience racism. And this woman decided to send a question out to white people. A few weeks ago, I made a video of a black woman, an African American woman, asking the white people what they do in cases that they feel like they are experiencing racism. Because we all know that these people created racism. So how are they saying they are getting attacked from the same thing that they created? This woman's question was very important, and few white people, just few, turn up. So without wasting much time, let's just get into it and let's see what these people have to say.
So I'm going to go ahead and openly admit that I am completely ignorant about the white experience with racism, and I'm sure that is painfully obvious to a lot of you. Now, I know that I'm always telling other people don't be lazy and entitled, the internet is free, look things up on your own, but it's not that I haven't tried to engage in my own research. I have literally searched, how do white people experience racism? And unfortunately, not a lot of information comes up. Most of it is articles questioning whether white people can experience racism, or articles about the myth of anti-white racism. However, I of all people know that the dominant narrative is not necessarily accurate because it is often pushing a harmful agenda. So because there is that dearth of information on the internet, I was wondering if you could please help me understand, how do white people experience racism, and what does experiencing racism look like from your perspective as a white person? And also, can you help me understand, if white people experience racism, why are there not more of you who are working to dismantle racism? Because what I've noticed is I'm often told that white people do experience racism without any specifics, and in the context of either gaslighting or upholding the racism that other people experience. Whereas with most people of the global majority, when we share similarities and differences in how we experience racism, we use that information to increase our work to dismantle racism. Whereas people like you seem to only bring it up to decrease that work. How do white people experience racism, and what does experiencing racism look like from your perspective as a white person?
So you're essentially presupposing that everybody that can experience racism is going to experience racism universally in one way, depending on their racial group. But I don't think this is the best way to look at it. See, not even all black people experience racism in the same way. Not all Latinos, not all Asians, not all Pacific Islanders. So to attempt to Google this subjective experience when it comes to white people, and then to blame your lack of reason on the lack of Google search evidence, it just seems a bit naive. It feels like if you were to say, a man told me today that men can actually be sexually assaulted as well within this patriarchal society. And not just by other men, but by other women. He even told me that he had experienced this himself. I looked him dead in his face and I said, I don't know. Let me look this up on Bing. I will say, this lady does seem like she's coming from a genuine place of confusion and curiosity. So in all seriousness, if you genuinely want something to ponder on, this is what I would ask you. In terms of someone being mixed with black and white, do you believe that biracial individuals can experience racism? If so, do you believe that them being criticized for presenting and acting too black or presenting and acting too white would be an example of this racism? If a white person told this individual that they're acting too black and that they're not white enough, this would be them being antagonistic by using their preconceived notions of what a black person is and what a white person should be. In the same way, I believe a black person telling this individual that they're too white or that they're not black enough is them being antagonistic using their preconceived notions of what a white person universally is and what a black person universally should should be. If we can acknowledge that this biracial individual is experiencing racism on both sides of the spectrum, aka anti-blackness as well as anti-whiteness, then why can't we apply that same capacity for experience to black and white individuals outside of being biracial?
How do white people experience racism, and what does experiencing racism look like?
Hey, Amy, I can definitely answer this question about if white people experience racism. And if we do, what does that look like? Now, see, I was with another white person the other day, and when I was with him, he did a racism. I experienced him doing a racism. He was a racist, and I experienced that. And I would say that is the only way in which a white person experiences racism. Love your content.
How do white people experience racism?
Hey, Amy. I know that this post is really more of a rhetorical question because I know that ultimately at the end of the day, you know the answer. Obviously, you've never experienced racism as a white person, so you can't speak to the white experience, and I appreciate you recognizing that. And Inigo's not answering your question for some weird reason, but by looking at the comments in your comments section, I'm realizing that there's a lot of people, specifically white people, who don't really understand kind of the gist. And here's the reality. White people experience racism every day, and white people are victims of racism every day, but not in the way that Inigo is trying to say we are. The way that we experience racism every day is through the conditioning of our parents, our educators, our mentors, and society. This idea that we are innately, or we are subconsciously and subversively taught to believe that we are innately superior. Therefore, because of our innate superiority, we lean back on the laurels of our mediocrity and we don't really push ourselves to be our best selves. Secondly, we're victims of racism for other reasons. An example of us being victims of racism is the privatized prison industrial complex. That was originally designed to keep down people of color, minorities, and marginalized groups. But now, because of the way that the laws are written, there are now white folks who are being caught up in the system because they don't have the money to hire an attorney. They don't have the money for proper criminal defense legislation, or they live in marginalized areas and they're being swept up. So that would be a very specific micro example of how white folks can be victims of systemized racism. And there are a ton of other examples. We're victims of racism for the sheer fact that we are denying ourselves of the beauty of diversity, of the beauty of differences, the beauty of having people in our lives who don't look like us, who don't think like us, who don't believe like us, because of this conditioned idea that we are superior and therefore we should be by ourselves. We should be segregated away from the masses, and we're really limiting ourselves by doing that. Now, there's a ton of other examples. I could talk for probably hours. I'm sure there are books out there that talk about this. I'm sure there are a bunch of books. But as a white person, yes, I do experience this every day, and I am a victim of it every day. And even though I was raised by an anti-racist family, there are still things that I am conditioned to believe by society that I still have to break through every single day. And I still have to put my anti-racist hat on and think about whether or not I am using my whiteness as an excuse to be mediocre. And ultimately, that's how we experience racism. Ultimately, that's how we're victims of racism. So, Inigo, where you at, my guy?
What do you guys think about the question the original creator asked? If you have been following that woman's account, you will know she purposely pulled that question out. And so if you listen towards the end, she was telling them, like, if you guys really experience racism, why is it not all over the place, just like the way it is for black people? And why is it that anytime a black person is talking about their experience with racism, they are always there saying white people as well experience racism? I believe white people can experience prejudice and they as well suffer from the effect of racism. It was a system that was created by their own people, so they suffer the effect of what was created. This comment says, because white people don't go on and on about it, we don't use it as an excuse. You know, that woman said, why is there no people? So why is there no white people talking about their own racist experience? And this person is saying because they don't use it as an excuse. Basically saying black people use it as an excuse, but we all know it's telling. Another one said, I am white. There is no such thing as racism for white. We created racism. This person said, as a white guy who grew up with white people, white folks don't know the first thing about racism or structural oppression. Like, I don't even think they smell it like that. Another one said, they are probably thinking of what they are made to feel uncomfortable about their privilege and that racism exists. So maybe the way they feel or the way people come or talk about white privilege that doesn't sit well with them, and they feel like people are coming or attacking them, and that is what they are calling racism basically. Another person said, white people experience the effect of racism, but not racism itself. Fact. We experience prejudice, and I think white folks conflate that with racism. What they basically experience is prejudice and the effect of the system that they created. I really want to hear you guys. I'm really hoping for when this conversation is even going to come to an end, because I've seen videos like this and comments of white people as well saying they experience racism, experience this and that, and it's only black people are just acting like a victim. They are not talking about theirs. What are black people overreacting with what they are experiencing? So let me hear you guys' thoughts about all of this conversation in the comment section. Thank you all so much for joining. Please subscribe before you go and turn your bell notification on as well. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. And I love you guys.